All right, strap yourselves in, because today we're diving headfirst into the world of H.P. Lovecraft. We're talking timelines, creatures, gods, the whole shebang.
We're talking about all of his stories, every single one. And we're going to try to build a complete timeline of events from his entire mythos.
And then, after all that, we have to figure out where these cosmic horrors fit in,
Yeah.
how they, mess with humanity.
That's the fun part. But yeah, it's going to be quite a journey.
No kidding. Now, piecing together a timeline from Lovecraft's stories is like, well, imagine you're putting together a puzzle, right? But some of the pieces are missing, and the picture on the box, pure nightmare fuel.
Exactly. Lovecraft doesn't exactly hold our hands through this. He drops hints here and there, and sometimes they're vague, sometimes they're even contradictory.
So how do we even begin to unravel this cosmic mess? Where do we even start?
Well, we can latch onto a few key events. One of the earliest and arguably most pivotal is the rise of the Elder Things.
Ah, yes. The Elder Things. Those beings from At the Mountains of Madness.
Yeah.
With those star-shaped heads and tentacles, like something out of a fever dream.
Exactly. And they weren't just strange looking. These guys were incredibly advanced architects, scientists. They even dabbled in a bit of genetic engineering. That's where the Shoggoths come in.
Okay, so we're talking about a race of beings that predate humans by, millions of years, maybe even billions. They're building cities, running experiments, creating new life forms. That's a lot to process.
It is, and it really highlights one of Lovecraft's central themes, the utter insignificance of humanity in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, talk about a reality check.
Yeah.
So these Elder Things create the Shoggoths as their workforce. But like a lot of ambitious projects, things don't exactly go according to plan, do they?
Right. The Shoggoths, those shape-shifting blobs of intelligence, they eventually rebel. And this wasn't just some minor squabble. It was a full-blown clash of civilizations, the beginning of the end for the Elder Things.
A classic tale of hubris, right? You create something you think you can control, and it turns around and bites you. Or in this case, engulfs you in its ever-shifting protoplasmic mass.
Exactly. And ultimately, the Elder Things are forced to retreat to their last city in Antarctica. That's where, as you know, from At the Mountains of Madness, they eventually meet their demise.
Right, and that's where we humans, the intrepid explorers, stumble upon their ruins and get a glimpse into this vast and ancient history.
Exactly. And that's part of what makes Lovecraft so compelling. He forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge and the unsettling possibility that we're not at the top of the food chain, cosmically speaking.
Yeah, more like bottom feeders, right? So we have the Elder Things, creators of the Shoggoths, and then somewhere in this prehistoric timeline, we also have the emergence of another powerful race, the Great Old Ones.
Now we're talking about the big names, the heavy hitters. Cthulhu, Yog-Sothoth, Azathoth, the ones that make your skin crawl just hearing their names.
And each one is unique, right? With its own set of powers and domains. But what they all seem to share is a complete indifference to humanity, at best.
Right, and sometimes it's much worse than indifference. Contact with these entities often leads to madness, despair. It can shatter your entire reality.
So it's not just about physical danger, it's about the psychological impact. It's about realizing that our place in the universe is way more precarious, way more insignificant than we'd like to believe.
And that's a big part of Lovecraft's horror. He taps into our deepest fears about the unknown and the possibility that we're not really in control. Not even close.
Okay, so we've got the Elder Things, the Shoggoths, the Great Old Ones. Where do we go from here on this twisted timeline?
Well, one event that looms large is the sinking of Arilé. That's the underwater city where Cthulhu is said to slumber and dream.
Ah, yes, Cthulhu. Everyone knows Cthulhu, even if they've never read Lovecraft. The tentacled behemoth lurking in the depths, waiting to wake up and wreak havoc. But he's not dead, is he? He's just taking a nap.
Precisely. Cthulhu is trapped, imprisoned within Arlaia, but very much alive. He's waiting, dreaming, and exerting a subtle influence on the world, driving sensitive souls to madness. And the thought of his eventual return, well, that hangs over humanity like a dark cloud.
It's that constant dread, the knowledge that something terrible is out there, just waiting to wake up. That's what makes Lovecraft so effective at creating this atmosphere of cosmic horror. It's not just the monster itself, it's the anticipation, the waiting.
And that's just Cthulhu. We've barely scratched the surface of Lovecraft's pantheon of cosmic horrors. There's so much more to explore.
Okay, you've convinced me. Bring on the cosmic horrors.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of H.P. Lovecraft. We've been mapping out this cosmic timeline, exploring the rise and fall of these ancient civilizations, the Elder Things, and the looming presence of the great old ones.
It's really mind-blowing to think about these entities existing for eons, and we're just like, little ants scurrying around.
Sure. And what's even more unsettling is that Lovecraft suggests these beings aren't just passive observers, they're actively influencing human history from the shadows.
You mean like those creepy cults that we see pop up in his stories, the ones worshiping Cthulhu or Yog-Sothoth, trying to summon these cosmic horrors into our world?
Exactly. Those cults are a fascinating example of how humans react when they become aware of cosmic horror. Some are driven to madness while others are drawn to the darkness. They seek power or knowledge through these forbidden rituals.
Yeah, it's a dangerous game to play, for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess it speaks to that human desire to understand the universe, even if that understanding comes at a terrible price.
And let's not forget about the ancient texts that Lovecraft weaves into his stories. The Necronomicon, the Book of Ibon, the Nakhotic manuscripts, these forbidden books offer glimpses into the true nature of reality, but they also contain knowledge that can drive men mad.
Yeah, the Necronomicon. It's like the ultimate forbidden fruit, a source of power and knowledge that's both alluring and terrifying at the same time.
It's a powerful symbol of the dangers of seeking knowledge beyond human comprehension, a reminder that some truths are best left buried.
Okay, so we've got this sprawling timeline, these ancient beings, these forbidden texts. It's a lot to take in. But what are some of the specific powers and domains of these cosmic entities? We talked about Cthulhu sleeping beneath the waves, but what about the others?
Well, each great old one has its own unique set of abilities and spheres of influence. Take Yog-Sothoth, for example, often described as this mass of glowing orbs and tentacles. Yog-Sothoth exists outside of our three-dimensional reality.
So like interdimensional travel. Is that how these otherworldly horrors find their way into our world?
Precisely. Yog-Sothoth is often seen as a gatekeeper, a being who can open doorways between dimensions, allowing creatures from beyond to enter our reality.
Okay, that's seriously freaky. And what about Azathoth, the blind idiot god at the center of everything? He's always struck me as the ultimate cosmic mystery.
Azathoth is truly a mind-boggling concept. Imagine a being so vast and incomprehensible that it's completely unaware of its own existence. A being whose dreams create and sustain the entire universe.
So basically we're all just figments of Azathoth's imagination.
It speaks to the cosmic indifference that permeates Lovecraft's work. The idea that the universe is ultimately meaningless and that even the most powerful beings are subject to the whims of a blind and uncaring force.
That's a lot to process, and it's enough to make you want to just, curl up in a ball and hide. But I guess there's also a certain freedom in that realization. If nothing really matters, then we're free to create our own meaning.
That's an interesting perspective. Perhaps Lovecraft's work, while terrifying, can also be liberating in a way.
So we've talked about these cosmic entities in a rather abstract sense, but how do they actually manifest themselves in Lovecraft's stories? What kind of impact do they have on the humans who encounter them?
Well, as we've discussed, they often drive people mad. Just a glimpse of a tentacle, the sound of an otherworldly whisper can be enough to shatter someone's sanity.
Yeah, and it's not just a quiet descent into madness, right? Some of Lovecraft's characters are driven to violence, to self-destruction, even to becoming agents of these cosmic horrors.
Exactly. The human mind is simply not equipped to handle the reality of these beings. It's like a cognitive overload that leads to a complete breakdown of our perception of the world.
It's that classic Lovecraftian theme of cosmic horror, the fear of the unknown, the realization that there are forces at play that are beyond our control and comprehension.
And Lovecraft masterfully creates an atmosphere of dread and uncertainty. He leaves us constantly questioning what's real and what's not, what's human and what's otherworldly.
It's the kind of horror that sticks with you long after you finish reading, planting seeds of doubt and fear that can be hard to shake off.
And speaking of unsettling, let's delve into some of the more specific ways these entities influence humanity beyond individual madness. Lovecraft explores the broader societal implications of encountering the unknown.
So not just one guy losing his mind, but entire civilizations crumbling under the weight of cosmic dread.
Exactly. Lovecraft suggests that widespread knowledge of these cosmic horrors could undermine the very foundations of human society. Our laws, our religions, our sense of order, all of it crumbles in the face of the vast and indifferent cosmos.
It's like that saying, the more you know, the less you understand. Except in Lovecraft's case, it's more like, the more you know, the more you wish you didn't.
Precisely. And this sense of societal collapse is a recurring theme in his work, from the doomed city of Arlaia to the isolated, degenerate community of Innsmouth.
It's a chilling reminder that our civilization, for all its advancements, is incredibly fragile, and that there are forces out there that could easily wipe us out.
And that brings us to another important aspect of Lovecraft's work, the theme of cosmic insignificance.
Hey, we've touched on this before, but it's worth reiterating because it's so central to his worldview.
Lovecraft constantly reminds us that we are not the center of creation, that the universe is vast and indifferent to our existence, and that even the most powerful beings we can imagine are ultimately insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
It's a humbling perspective, to say the least, but it also raises some interesting questions. If nothing really matters in the cosmic sense, then what's the point of it all?
That's a question that Lovecraft grapples with throughout his work, and while he doesn't offer any easy answers, he does suggest that there's a certain beauty in the vastness and indifference of the cosmos.
A beauty in knowing that we're just a small part of something much larger than ourselves.
Exactly, and perhaps there's a certain freedom in that realization as well. If we're not burdened by the weight of cosmic significance, then we're free to create our own meaning, to find our own purpose in a universe that doesn't offer any inherent answers.
It's a thought-provoking idea, and one that I think resonates with a lot of people who find themselves drawn to Lovecraft's work.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive. We've explored the powers and domains of Lovecraft's cosmic entities, the ancient texts that hint at their existence, and the profound impact they have on both individuals and society as a whole.
But our journey isn't over. Yet there's still more to uncover, more mysteries to unravel. So stay tuned for Part 3 of our deep dive into the world of H.P. Lovecraft, where we'll delve even deeper into the horrors and wonders that lie beyond the veil of reality. All right, we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into Lovecraft's universe.
We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to explore.
We've talked about all these cosmic horrors, the potential for madness, the whole societal collapse thing, but where does this all come together? How does it play out in Lovecraft's stories?
Well, Lovecraft was a master of atmosphere. He weaves these themes into his narratives, creating a sense of creeping dread that stays with you.
Right, it's not just about monsters jumping out and saying boo. It's about the psychological impact, the slow, agonizing descent into madness.
Exactly. And one of the best examples of this is, of course, The Call of Cthulhu, probably Lovecraft's most famous story.
Oh yeah, The Call of Cthulhu. It's got all the classic elements. Ancient beings sleeping under the ocean, creepy cults trying to wake them up, and those unsettling dreams.
Those dreams are a great example of how Lovecraft gets under your skin. He's suggesting that even in sleep, we're not safe from these cosmic horrors.
And then there's the Necronomicon, right?
Yeah.
The forbidden book that holds the key to summoning these entities.
The Necronomicon is a powerful symbol, but it's not the only one. Lovecraft created this whole library of arcane texts. The Narcotic Manuscripts, the Book of Ibon.
It's like you built a secret history of the universe, full of knowledge that's both fascinating and dangerous.
And the more we delve into these texts, the more we realize how much we don't know, and how much of that knowledge is just too much for us to handle.
It's like the deeper you go, the more you realize you're in over your head. And the line between reality and nightmare starts to get blurry.
Exactly. Lovecraft doesn't just tell us about these horrors, he shows us their impact. We see characters lose their minds, crumble under the weight of cosmic dread.
It's that feeling you get when you're alone in the dark and you hear a noise, but you can't explain it. Your mind starts racing, filling in the blanks with all sorts of terrifying possibilities.
That's Lovecraft's horror. It's visceral, it's psychological, and it sticks with you. So why do we keep coming back to it? Why are we drawn to these stories?
That's the question, isn't it? Maybe it's the thrill of the unknown, the chance to peer into the abyss.
Maybe it's a way to confront our fears, to explore the dark side of our own minds.
Or maybe it's a reminder that even in the face of cosmic indifference, we're still here. We're still fighting, still trying to find meaning in a universe that doesn't seem to care.
There's a certain beauty in that struggle, I think. A defiance in the face of oblivion.
And maybe that's why Lovecraft's work is still so powerful.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths, but it also reminds us that we have the strength to keep going, even when everything seems hopeless.
Well said. I think we've done a good job exploring the depths of Lovecraft's universe today. The timeline, the creatures, those forbidden texts.
Yeah, my brain feels a little fried, but it was definitely worth it.
The little cosmic dread never hurt anyone, right?
Right, maybe. But for now, I think I need a break from tentacles and ancient gods. Until next time, everyone, keep those minds open.